UFC 315 is right around the corner. Jack Della Maddalena is getting his first title shot against Belal, remember the name, Muhammad, aka the most boring fighter in the welterweight division. We're going to break down the entire fight card and give our fight predictions for every single fight. Give our overall thoughts. I'm going to start out with the very first fight on the card, Brad Katona and Bekzat Almakhan. Uh, Bekzat had probably the hardest UFC debut that you can get in the bantamweight division. His first fight was against Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar beat him, so he was 11-1 coming into the UFC. Had a first really tough matchup with Umar, um, but he's a very talented prospect. He was on a fat win streak before he ran into Umar. Can't really expect much when you're going against the number one contender in the bantamweight division. At least he is now. At the time they weren't, but he was still just as dangerous. So Brad Katona is one of the more boring, in my opinion, bantamweights. Especially when you see someone as much of a physical specimen as he is, you expect there to be fireworks, but not the case. I'm pretty sure all of his fights have gone to a decision in the UFC. Yep. So he's kind of just a point striker. He's not a huge try and get you out of there bantamweight. And honestly, for the bantamweights, which in my opinion, they have the most skill in the UFC, he's not up there. He's just not. Um, I think Bekzat's going to get this one done. I don't think it's going to be a TKO, but I do think Bekzat is going to get this done via decision. Probably going to be a pretty grimy pace. I would expect a decent bit of wrestling. Um, but yeah, Brad Katona, I would just like to see him lose. And I think that Bekzat, although his UFC debut didn't go the way he would plan, it was against. I mean that was a very valuable 15 minutes that he spent in the octagon with Umar. Um, not many people outside of the top 10 in the bantamweight division can say that they've got 15 minutes of experience in the octagon with one of the best right now. So I think he's going to get it done via decision. Moving on, Daniel Santos and Jiang Li. Another fun matchup. Featherweights here. I'm going to go with Daniel Santos in this one. Both of these guys are very technical. This is Charles Oliveira's teammate in a very good camp in Shoot the Box. But he's 2-1 since he's gotten in the UFC. Beat John Castaneda, beat Munoz, lost to Arce. And Jiang Li, he's fun to watch too. He is. Beat Blake Builder. Got TKO'd in July last year. But he's definitely a fun prospect out of Korea. I could certainly see. I'm pretty sure Daniel Santos has a pretty good reach on him. Oh wow, he's working with a 6.5-inch reach advantage. That's crazy. 3 inches taller. It's what's interesting is that Daniel Santos is a striker, right? And Lee is more of a grappler. But Lee has quite a bit of an advantage here. Um, Daniel Santos is fighting up at featherweight, but it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's stylistically, it's a clash of styles. It's your your classic striker versus jiu-jitsu guy. And in this case, the jiu-jitsu guy has got a pretty good advantage, both height and reach. Kind of like a Chase Hooper almost. Chase Hooper's not going to fight very many people in his weight class that are going to be taller than him or have better grappling. It's going to be like one or the other. So really interesting matchup. I'm going to go with Daniel Santos, but I could see this one going either way, and that's why the odd makers have the odds the way they are. Moving on, Marc-Andre Barriault and Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva's had a tough go at it as of late. Um, he was on a huge win streak before he ran into Alex Pereira. He was one of Alex Pereira's first fights in the UFC. Alex Pereira badly hurt him. It went to a unanimous decision, I'm almost positive, for Pereira. But Bruno's hasn't been the same since then. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. Chris Weidman, Saeed Magomedov, Brandon Allen. His last win was against Brad Tavares, which was a TKO about 3 years ago. But lost to Alex Pereira and then lost to GM3. Both of those pretty on par. Got subbed by GM3 and a unanimous decision with Poatan. But ever since that fight with Poatan, he's just been he hasn't been the same. I mean, this streak that he went on when he first got into the UFC, like these first 3 TKOs, like he was a prospect on a rocket ship. He was on a lot of people's radars. Like I remember when he came in, we were like, "Oh shit, this guy's the real deal." And since he's been in the UFC, he's lost 6 times. So after that initial streak that he was on, he ran into Poatan and everything changed. And he just doesn't fight the same. It's like he's a little apprehensive. And you can't do that against Marc-Andre. Marc-Andre is going to be in front of his home crowd. We've seen him get pretty pumped up fighting in front of the Canadians. But this is a great matchup by the UFC. I mean, both of these guys are struggling right now. Marc-Andre, in my opinion, he's a little more dangerous as the fight goes. Just because of his style, I feel like he wears on people a little bit, but he really starts to gain some steam as the fight goes. Whereas Bruno Silva, I feel like, is a little bit of the opposite. He has a little bit more volume, but both of these guys need a win desperately. We got a 3-fight losing streak here and a 4-fight losing streak for Bruno Silva. So one of these guys is most likely going to be cut after this fight. I would say that's a pretty strong bet that you could make. One of these guys is definitely going to get cut after this fight. So I would expect to see fireworks in this one, and the odds makers have it. Relatively even, but I think Marc-Andre is probably going to get this one done. Both of these guys' confidences are probably in the fucking dumpster right now. Not a whole lot of confidence going into the cage for each one of these guys, but I think they both understand or they should at least understand the stakes of this fight and the fact that they will not be in the UFC if they lose this next fight. So I would expect fireworks in this one. I'm going to go with Marc-Andre Barriault by TKO in the 2nd round. This is a really exciting matchup. I think a lot of people are hot on Navajo Sterling, as they should be. The New Zealand prospect is undefeated, 2 fights in the UFC, technically 1 after his Dana White Contender Series, but honestly, I do count a Dana White Contender Series as like a fight in the UFC, just because I've said it before, but the fights in a Dana White Contender Series, the stakes are so high that, in my opinion, even though they're at the apex and they're not on a real UFC card, the stakes are just as high, if not higher. So, he's got one dub since his UFC contract was afforded to him, and then Ivan he's kind of on the way out, you know. Hasn't really been able to put anything together. Second fight in the UFC, lost to Ion Cutelaba, who's also on this card. We'll talk about his matchup in a bit, but that's a pretty legit person to lose to. I know Cutelaba had a little bit of a skid there for a while, but after his last couple fights, I feel like he's made a little bit of improvements. But I think this is pretty much gonna stay on the feet. This is a pretty lopsided odds here for a pretty good reason. I mean, we've got a 7-inch reach, 7 inches, guys. That's when you're as good of a striker as Navajo is, and you're working with a 7-inch reach. That's going to be a very difficult thing to overcome if you're Ivan. I'm going to go with Navajo Sterling as well on this one. Oh, is he going to get it done before the 15 minutes? That's the question. That is the question. I mean, he's got a lot of TKOs and KOs. He does. He's got the power. It honestly just depends on this fight and how it turns out. I think regardless, Sterling's going to get it done, but how this fight ends is going to completely depend on Ivan's game plan. If Ivan manages distance and understands that he's got a very big reach disadvantage to overcome and figure out, if he's smart about that and chooses his shots wisely and he doesn't get frustrated and start to overextend when he's not in range, if he does that and stays smart, I could see this going to a decision and Navajo outpointing him. But we see it a lot when guys are at that much of a reach disadvantage in a fight. Round one, they get a little frustrated that they can't touch the other person, right? They're getting tagged up a little bit. Round two, maybe they start getting tagged up a little more. They get more frustrated that they're not figuring out the reach and how to get in and close at the distance without getting tagged. And then, by mid round two and round three, people start overextending and putting themselves in danger. And I think if Ivan does that and he gets frustrated not being able to overcome the reach disadvantage and finding shots early, I think we could see him make some sloppy entries and get caught on the way in. So fuck. I'm going to go with my gut here, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see either a late round two finish or a round three finish by Navajo Sterling TKO. Moving on, Modestus Bukakskis and Ian Kutelaba, the Hulk. Ian Kutelaba is one of the more it's just batshit crazy. It's really the only way to put it. He's just a frightening individual. Paints himself all green like the Hulk before on his weigh-ins and screams in his opponent's faces, and like I said, he had kind of a sketchy bit there for a while. Really, I mean, I started watching the UFC about 5 years ago religiously, and that's about when it's about when his decline started, or his inconsistency. But to be fair, like, he's always fought for the most part pretty high level guys, or at least pretty difficult. You got Jared Cannonier, that was fucking 10 years ago, but Johnny Walker, Kennedy Nzechukwu, he's still a rising prospect. Ryan Spann, Devin Clark, Magomed Ankalaev, number one prospect. So I mean, he's had a somewhat tough schedule, but had a lot of trouble keeping things consistent. He is on a 2-fight win streak now. Got his first sub in a long time in his last fight, but he's typically the more physical person in the cage at this weight class. But I don't find that to be the case here with Modestus. The thing with Ion Cutelaba is that it depends what version of him shows up in the cage that night. You could get the Hulk that's walks in there and has the lowest fight IQ and just marches forward with his head on the center line getting tagged, or we could get the Hulk that we've had the last two fights and he shows a little bit of the fact that he's got a brain inside that dense skull of his. So I think a lot of this fight just depends on what version of Ion Cutelaba we get. But I think regardless of which version of Ion Cutelaba shows up, I think Modestus has the tools to mitigate the threats of Ion. So I'm gonna go with Modestus here. I would say we're probably gonna get a finish in this fight. This is one of those fights that is one of my least confident on the card, just because both of these guys can shut your lights off very quickly. And again, it is gonna really depend on what version of Ion Cutelaba we get that walks in that octagon. But I think Modestus is gonna get it done, probably by TKO. But I could also see this going to a decision as well. We've seen some rather boring fights from both of these guys at times, so toss up on how it's going to end. But I think Bukauskas is going to get it done. Moving up, Jessica Andrade and Jasmine Jasudavicius. We got all sorts of fucked up names on this card. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not quite sure why Jessica Andrade is still fighting. I don't think that she's competitive anymore. I just don't. She got a split decision over Marina Rodriguez. Marina Rodriguez just retired. She's looked like shit the last 2 years, 3 years. That doesn't mean shit. So let's look at this. If it was not for Mackenzie Dern, who we all know her striking sucks. That's not the reason people watch her. There's a couple of reasons why people watch Mackenzie Dern. Her striking is not one of them. So she beats Marina Rodriguez and a TKO with Mackenzie Dern, which Jessica Andrade has really good jiu-jitsu, and she's got some power too. But knocking out Mackenzie Dern is not. If she would have subbed Mackenzie Dern, that would have been a little more impressive. But if it wasn't for these two absolute gifts of matchups that the UFC gave Jessica Andrade, she would literally be 0-6 in her last 6 fights. 0-6. She's getting up there in age. I don't know why we still see Andrade in the UFC. And Jasmine is very talented for the flyweight division. I like her a lot. She's going to be fighting in front of her home crowd. She's on a 4-fight win streak. She's on a completely different trajectory. And it's crazy because she's older than Andrade by like 3 years. Andrade looks like she's 60, but we've just got they're on different trajectories. Jessica has she's got triple the fight experience that Jasmine does, but that's not going to mean shit in this fight. She's got a 6-inch height advantage on Jessica Andrade. She's probably got a fat reach advantage too, 6 inches. And we've seen this before. Jessica Andrade is going to know that she's not going to be able to stand on the feet with her. I see Jessica Andrade shooting for takedowns. If she's able to get Jasmine up against the fence, it's going to be a little bit more effective, I think, for Jessica. Where we're going to see her get in trouble in this fight, I think, is she's going to get frustrated and start trying to shoot takedowns in the middle of the octagon, which is going to leave her open to get countered, maybe eat some knees. And I don't think that she's going to have much of a threat for Jasmine unless she puts the pressure on Jasmine, backs her up against the fence, and can start working takedowns up against the fence. Because Jessica, once she gets you on the ground, like her ground and pound's pretty good. But is she going to be able to close the distance on Jasmine and get close enough to shoot a takedown without getting in trouble? I don't think she's going to be able to. Jasmine's got good footwork. Her striking's really, really crisp. So um, I'm going with Jasmine by unanimous decision. Andrade is pretty difficult to knock out. I want to say she's only been TKO'd like once or twice in the last couple losses. Right? Let's see. Yeah. So her last losses were mostly all submissions and unanimous decisions, but she has been TKO'd a few times, but you know, I think Jasmine's probably gonna get this one done by decision. But Jasmine is definitely gonna, I think, make this look easy for sure. Moving on, Mike Malott and Charles Radke. Um, this is an interesting matchup. Very interesting matchup. I don't think that this one's going to be going the decision. Charles Radke is probably going to be a little emotional going into this fight. He has had some words for the Canadian crowd and Mike Malott about them booing the national anthem. So we got a real proud American here. Um, so we could see him going into the octagon a little emotional here. And typically when that happens, it's usually not good. So I hope that he's able to keep his emotions in check because I think we could have a really fun fight here. Mike Malott is going to be again fighting in front of his home crowd, but that's funny. His fighting style is thug jitsu. But both of these guys are pretty well rounded. I mean, if I were a betting man, I'd say that we're going to see this fight go to the ground. We're going to see some clinch. We're going to see some wrestling. We're going to see some striking. We're going to see both these guys get into the pocket and bang. I'm pretty excited for this fight. Mike Malott has a tendency to sometimes take his foot off the pedal and like not give the most exciting fights, but when you have a willing dance partner like Charles Radke, I think it's going to be like two semi trucks hitting in the middle of the octagon. It's going to be a fun fight. Um, I'm going to go with Charles Radke here. I know that's probably a hot take. You got the home crowd behind you, but I think that Radke is probably going to get this down to the ground at some point. But Mike Malott might too. That's the thing is both of these guys are well rounded enough that I don't know if either one of them are necessarily like scared of one facet of the other person's game. You know, we see that last weekend with Bo Nickel, right? Like some or just in general with guys like him that have like an Usman or a Cejudo or a Marab is a great example. You see people like Sean O'Malley not let their hands go because they're scared of a takedown. I don't think we're going to see that in this fight. Both of these guys, I think, are pretty confident in their takedowns and their ability to wrestle up. So I think we're going to see this fight go to the ground 100%. Who initiates that is going to be, I think, whoever's getting tagged up. I don't think either of these guys are going to walk in there with a game plan to wrestle a ton, but I could see one of them really getting tagged up and starting to rely on their wrestling because they have it. But I'm going to go Charles Radke, TKO, round one. Moving on, Benoit Saint Denis and Kyle Prepolek. Who the fuck is this guy? We were supposed to get a really good matchup between Benoit Saint Denis and Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez pulled out a week or so ago with an undisclosed injury, and they bring in Kyle Prepolek, who was in the UFC years ago for 2 fights, lost, and then spent, however many of the last years on the regional scene. So he left in 2019 and has been on the regional scene now for 6 years, 5 years. And You're telling me we had no one better at 155 pounds to bring back to fight against BSD? That's what you're telling me? And he's on the main, like, that's, I understand that fights fall through. I do. I truly understand that fights fall through and you might have a hard time making a matchup for someone. But this is like they didn't even fucking try to find another good matchup for BSD in the lightweight division. Like there are so many unranked lightweight guys that I'm sure would be more than happy in the UFC that are already in the UFC. They would be more than happy to take a fight against BSD, especially given the fact that BSD is not on as much of a tear as he used to be. He's on 2-fight losing streak. What the fuck? He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Got KO'd by vicious KO by Dustin Poirier, and then doctor stoppage against Moicano. So, but before then, people were like, "This is the next guy, Benoit Saint Denis." He's like a former French special forces, just scary dude. And we saw him come in and put on some really exciting fights. So he had a lot of steam behind him, and then Dustin Poirier came in and took all that steam out. But just because he lost to Moicano and Dustin Poirier, now we're giving him some fucking no-name? Like, we can still keep this fight interesting, but give him someone in the UFC at lightweight just outside of the top 15. You're telling me there was no one at lightweight that would step up on a short notice and take this fight. So now we got this fucking can who's 18-8 stepping in to probably just be fed to the wolves here. Like, I'm not going to act like I know anything about this guy because I don't. But fuck. I've said it in previous videos. These types of betting lines, I always have a problem seeing. I hate it. I hate in fighting when I see a -1,000 favorite. Like, this is fucking fighting. We've seen it time and time again. Upsets on a massive scale where you've got a +750 that takes out a -100 or a -1,000. We've seen opening odds, -3,000 for like Valentina Shevchenko when she was in her prime. And like, I get that there's dominant people, but BSD is not dominant right now. He's on a 2-fight. This is this is probably the only scenario that you're gonna find a fighter that's on a 2-fight losing streak that is in their next fight at a -1150. Think about that. That's fucking crazy. You're on a 2-fight losing streak and you have almost a -1,200 betting odds. That goes to show you how much people think that Kyle's a scrub. Again, I know nothing about this guy, but I mean, if you want to make your Saturday night fun and potentially win some stupid money and hammer that money line, then all power to you. But this is probably going to be a very, very one-sided fight. Benoit Saint Denis is going to be looking to come in here and get back in the win column. He's only 29. He looks like he's fucking 40. But that's the thing is Benoit is still very young. Very young. So it's crazy. He's fucking 3 years, not even 3 years older than me, and he just looks like he's 40. It's crazy. But like, if he was in his like 35, 36, and those two losses happened, I think we'd be having a much different conversation than we are now. But he's only 29. So he's won this win. You get him another guy right outside the top 15 in his next fight. He's right back in it, right? I don't think this is the last we're going to see of Benoit Saint Denis. I hope we see him come back out and truly make this look easy. I like BSD a lot. It sucks seeing him get knocked out and doctor stopped against Moicano and Poirier. So I think Benoit is going to get this done very, very easily. I think he's going to make it look like Kyle doesn't belong, and that would be because he doesn't. This guy does not belong in the UFC. You shouldn't get to the UFC at 18-8 at 30 fucking 5 years old. But hey, he's Canadian, so that's why he was given the fight, I'm sure. But this is the type of stuff right here that the UFC fans are a little bugged about right now. We've got a lot of shit to kind of be upset about as UFC fans. It's no secret that the promotion is in a spot that a lot of people are not happy with for a myriad of reasons. But one of the reasons would be like this: we've got a pay per view that people are going to spend $80 on. I'm not, but $80 to watch this. And then you've got some fucking no name on the main card. Like, that's the type of stuff that bugs UFC's fans. You're gonna keep driving up the prices of the UFC pay-per-views, and you're giving us fights like this. I'll never understand it, and I really hope the UFC makes pivots here soon because I'm not really liking the direction, and I don't think a lot of people are liking the direction that we're seeing this promotion go in, where they're making fights that don't make sense. They're making fights that are the big money fights for them, and it's just not heading in a good place. So Benoit Saint Denis is going to get this done. I think we're probably going to see either a submission or a TKO, likely early on. I don't think this one's going to last very long. Moving on. Alexa Grasso and Natalia Silva. This is a tough matchup, very tough matchup. Alexa Grasso is pretty skilled. I think she is more of a threat on the ground. Natalia is a very talented striker. I It's weird they've got Alexa Grasso as a striker, but I don't really see her as much of a striker. But Natalia is very, very, very talented. And this is going to be a tough fight to to predict. Truly. Former champ, far not necessarily too far removed from the title, but such a fun fight. I don't say that very often about women's MMA, but I think this is going to be a pretty fun fight. Alexa Grasso, that trilogy with Shevchenko was pretty good. Um, apart from this was a fucking snooze fest. Snooze fest. But I think Natalia is this is like a classic prospect versus someone that's been at the top for a little while now. Like a changing of the guards almost. I'm not saying that if Alexa Grasso loses this fight that we're not going to see her in top title contention ever again. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But we've got someone that was at the peak not long ago. She knows what it tastes like, right? And then we've got someone over here that's real hungry, and she's on the rise. And we could see a little bit of a passing of the guard here, where Natalia comes up in the rankings and Grasso continues to fall. But this is I am probably gonna go with Natalia Silva by decision. Here's where I could see this fight getting interesting. I could see Alexa Grasso having a game plan to get this to the ground. I do. She's much more of a submission threat than most at the flyweight division. Uh, and if she's smart, which that's a big if, but if she is, she should be taking this fight to the ground. That should be her number one objective, in my opinion. I think she outgrapples Natalia. I think Natalia outstrikes Alexa 9 times out of 10. Alexa doesn't have the best head movement. We see it. She's kind of got a little bit of a high guard. Head stays on the center line. Not a ton of movement. And that's going to get her in trouble in this fight, I think. So we could see her getting tagged up a little bit. I hope that she's not going to wait until she starts getting tagged up to try and change her game plan and start implementing some wrestling to get down to do some jujitsu. I hope she goes into this fight with a game plan to not stand with Natalia and try and get this fight to the ground. Because I think that that's just her method of victory here. Not saying that she can't stand at all with Silva, but I think if her clearest path to victory in this fight is going to be on the ground. I don't think she's going to get it there very easily, but I'm going to go Natalia Silva. Fuck. Do I follow my heart or my head? That's the hardest one here. Because my heart's saying Alexa Grasso. Because I love Alexa Grasso. She's. Fuck. I'm just going to stick with Natalia. I could definitely be. This is another one that I'm very unsure of. Very, very unsure of. Moving on. Jose Aldo. Aging like fine wine. And then the brother of Faraz Zahabi. Very, very talented prospect. Very talented. And then just an absolute legend. I mean, everyone is wondering, like, when are we going to finally see Jose Aldo start to decline? We haven't seen it yet. We all, listen, Mario Bautista wrestle fucked in this fight. It was boring as shit. No one, like, I don't consider this to be a sign that Jose is losing his touch. He got out wrestled. That's 100% a fact. But it's not like he went out there and just got like destroyed by Mario Bautista, because Mario Bautista is a very talented up and comer in the bantamweight division. But it's not like Mario went in there and just stuck it to him, you know. Uh, and if it wasn't for that, Jose's last loss in the last 5 years have been against Marab, who's the current champ, and then Piotr Jan, who was and still is a very, very dangerous bantamweight. A lot of people still think he's going to make another run. And then his other two losses behind that were Marlon Moraes and Volk. I mean, so we have not seen, he's 30 fucking 8 years old, and we haven't seen any sign of him slowing down. That's this line here should tell you how much of a legend Jose Aldo is and what the odds makers think of him. Because Amin Zahabi is a very dangerous prospect in the bantamweight division. Very dangerous. I'm sure it was difficult to get a fight booked for him. Had some early adversity when he got into the UFC. But since 2021, hasn't lost. A lot of he hasn't. Here's the deal though, is you're 37 years old, so you're a prospect, right? But you're not a young prospect. You're not a young prospect, or contender rather. You're becoming a contender here. This is you making steps to become a real title contention. But fighting once, twice a year is not going to get you there, dude. Like, he's going to have to fight at least one more time this year. Like, that's the biggest problem right now with the UFC. One of them is that you've got guys like this that, not saying that he's going to win two more fights and then get a title shot, but you got guys that fight once, maybe twice a year, and they get spoon-fed opportunities. And then you've got guys that fight 3-4 times a year, and they have a completely different route to the rankings. But 37 years old, dude, you gotta start kind of kicking this into gear. You can't be fighting once, maybe twice a year, and expect to become a true title contender at 37. So both of these guys are up there in age, but I'm going Jose Aldo. It's hard to pick against Jose Aldo. It's so hard. His takedown defense is really good. I'm almost positive in his fight against Merab. I'm almost positive that Merab was like 0 for 16 on his takedowns. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So I don't think that wrestling's gonna really. That's the thing with Jose, is that he really nullifies wrestling, right? So he's a good striker, really solid leg kicks, really tight boxing. But if you think you're gonna get in there and wrestle Jose Aldo and be successful at doing it, got another thing coming. So this is gonna stay on the feet 100%. I do not see this fight getting to the ground. I would be very hard pressed to say that that's going to be the route this fight goes. But I'm going to go Jose Aldo by unanimous decision. I don't know if we're going to see a finish here. I would love to see a finish, but I don't really know if Jose is gonna be able to finish Amon. But I'm going to go with Jose Aldo. Moving on, co-main event: Valentina Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot. Oh man. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. She looks like a man, and she scares me a bit. Valentina Shevchenko also scares me a bit. Any women that gets a fucking pistol tattooed on their rib cage, scary. However, Manon has been on a tear. Her last two fights were against Rose Namajunas, Rose is like, in my opinion, she's past her prime. We're not going to see much better out of Rose. But Erin Blanchfield is a very talented up and coming prospect. Very talented. And she was who a lot of people thought were going to be fighting for the title at flyweight in her next few fights, until she ran into Manon, and Manon beat her. Here's the other thing. Valentina is more dangerous, in my opinion, than Manon. Manon is a point fighter. She takes it to decision. We've never really seen her just beat the fuck out of someone. How many times have we seen Valentina Shevchenko put some poor soul in a crucifix and viciously TKO them or sub them, right? Like, she is trying to get you out of there without a doubt. And that's why people have loved Shevchenko, because she is truly looking to get her opponents out of there. Manon, not. Boring as fuck. Oh, unanimous decision, unanimous decision, unanimous decision, unanimous decision, unanimous decision. This right here is what we're looking for. Her first two fights against Tabitha Ricci and Victoria Leonardo, TKOs. Give us that shit. Don't give us this. We do not want to see this. As a 12-1, undefeated in the UFC, she's on a 7-fight win streak in the UFC. We do not want to see another unanimous decision. And again, it takes a good dance partner, right? Like Rose Namajunas, for instance. Rose Namajunas, you can see that going to a unanimous decision because of her fight style. Rose is not super powerful. She's not going to really engage in a lot in the pocket. She's smart about it. So yeah. But like everyone else, why are we fighting to a decision? Putting us to sleep. Listen, this fight starts. What time does this card start, guys? Probably fucking 7 o'clock. 6:30. So this fight's going to take place at like fucking midnight. We don't want to see unanimous. That's how fans like us on the East Coast, that's how we fall asleep on the couch before the fucking main event, is when we get a co-main that's a snooze fest. And we've seen Valentina in her we've seen her every now and then have a boring fight. She had that draw at UFC Noche at the Sphere against Grasso, which was a fucking snooze fest. But I just, for the sake of me staying awake as a UFC fan, I hope Valentina goes in there and really puts it on her. And I think she's going to. I think she's going to. I think she wants to show Manon that you might be an up and coming prospect and you might be on a huge tear, but I'm gonna I'm gonna go with Valentina. I think she's gonna get it done within 5 rounds. I'm calling it a crucifix TKO finish by Valentina. We're gonna see her get a good takedown. Her control's really good. She'll sit in top side control, top side half, rain down some shots, ultimately moving into like a crucifix. We've seen it many times before. And then we're just going to see her batter Manon. That's going to happen. Mark my words. We're going to go Valentina Shevchenko by a TKO crucifix. And then the main event, Belal put me to sleep Muhammad and JDM. I cannot stand Belal Muhammad's fight style. A lot of people can't. He's the complete opposite of what you want as a UFC champion. You want someone that's going to go in there and finish fights via TKO, submission, knockout, something exciting. The complete opposite of Belal, won't remember his name, Muhammad. He is your classic, like Dagestani type wrestle fuck you until the bell rings. We've seen him have the ability to finish fights, right? TKO'd Sean Brady. That was very impressive. First time I've seen Belal have a finish in almost 10 years, other than this submission. Only TKO in almost 10 years, 9 years, we'll call it. Like, when Belal became champion, Dana White probably did not sleep very well that night. He was like, fuck, my worst nightmare. Literally my worst nightmare. But you can't discount how good he is at what he does. Belal Muhammad is an extremely effective grappler, wrestler. If he gets you up against the fence, you're going to stay there. It's going to be very, very difficult to get him off of you. He uses his head very well. And again, if he gets his hands on you, a lot of times you're going to get taken down and you're going to stay where he wants you to be the rest of the round. He's a very effective grappler. JDM is a pretty decent grappler himself, but he's more of a striker. Both of these guys have very subpar striking, in my opinion. I know he TKO'd Gilbert Burns, but him and Gilbert Burns both tagged each other a good bit. And Jack, I don't like his striking. I don't think he's a good striker. Like, he leaves his chin up there, wide open. Not that he has anything to worry about with Belal, because Belal isn't gonna fucking touch his chin, I'm sure. But I don't think that we're gonna see JDM be able to negate the wrestling ability of Belal. We haven't seen anybody be able to. And that's the most frustrating fucking thing, is Belal is the most boring fighter on the welterweight roster, possibly in the UFC. He's definitely the most boring UFC champion that we've had active in the last fucking 5-10 years. I mean, uh, he is an East Coast USC fan's worst nightmare. We stay up till almost 1 a.m. to watch this whole card, and then we have to watch you wrestle fuck someone until we inevitably fall asleep in the 3rd round, wake up and go, oh fuck, I missed the rest of the fight. That's how it goes with Belal. If I had a dollar for every time I've fallen asleep during a Belal Muhammad fight, I could I'd be pretty rich. But I don't I could see the only way this fight is finished. here's the deal. Belal Muhammad knows people don't like him and knows people don't like his style. We've heard him say, "Oh, I'm going to finish, I'm going to strike, blah, blah, blah." He might come out with a chip on his shoulder in this fight, and he might want to try and stand with JDM. And if he does that, he could get into trouble. I don't know if JDM can turn his lights off with one hit, because it would be pretty tough to get Belal out of there once he's on the ground. That's once he makes a connection with you, he's probably going to regain his wits about him if you rock him and keep the fight attached to you. But I don't necessarily see JDM putting Belal out of there. I think we're going to see like a round 3 TKO, maybe. We might see Belal take him down, get like a Dagestani handcuff, and rain down some ground and pound. We might see something very similar to how he finished Sean Brady. And I hope so. Like, I'm sitting here talking mad shit about his fight style. All that to say that I think that he could, like, if he really put it on the line like he did with Sean Brady, he could get JDM out of there. I don't think JDM's going to win this fight. I think Belal is probably going to be the champion for at least another couple fights because he's very, very dominant right now. So I think Belal is most likely going to get this done. It's either going to be a decision and another snooze fest, or a very similar finish to what we saw with Sean Brady, round 2, round 3. So those are my fight predictions. This is one of the least confident cards I've seen in a while as far as picks go. There's a lot of up in the air fights on this card, but please, Belal, I can't stay up till 1 a.m. again for a 25-minute snoozer. I can't. I need to see a finish at 1 a.m. So those are my picks. Let me know what you think in the comments below, whether you think JDM's going to get it done or if Belal's going to put us to sleep or maybe show us another glimpse that he can get guys out of there like he did with Sean Brady. But nonetheless, going to be a good card this weekend. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you stopping by. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.